Welcome back, dear learners. Before the ad break, we defined a number of concepts and we explained a number of concepts that relate to wages. We will now look into the wages journal. What is the wages journal? It is a book of first entry which reflects the gross wages, our deductions, net wages, as well as contributions made by each employee. So all of these will be shown in our wages journal. And it is important for us to note that this wages journal is prepared weekly and is posted to the general ledger. When we prepare the wages journal, it is very important that we understand the difference between normal time and overtime, because we're going to be using these words when we are calculating our remuneration. Normal time, a system according to which employees are paid a set fee per hour. The rate is negotiated before the employee starts. Remember, I spoke about the hourly rate as well as the piece rate. There is also now what we call overtime. This is remuneration paid to workers who work longer hours than the normal time. For example, if you start work at 8 and you're supposed to finish at 5, it can happen that by the time you get to 5 p.m., there's still work to be completed. Then you can continue working, but you are now continuing to work beyond your normal time. Therefore, you are now within the overtime area now. Now, with the overtime, you have to be paid now for the overtime hours that you would have worked. This is what it's saying now: remuneration paid to workers who work longer hours than the normal time, and it is usually at a set fee. Overtime is calculated and it is included in the gross wage. We will now have information which we will use to prepare a wages journal. And here is some of the information. It relates to SS Sport Traders, and they have a 40-hour working week. Workers who work for more than 40 hours are paid overtime, and the rate is 1.5 times the ordinary rate. So if you work overtime, you get 1.5 times more than what you get in your normal hours. The basic rate is 20 Rand per hour. So at this point, you already know if you are going to calculate for overtime, you are simply going to say 20 Rand multiplied by 1.5. The employees worked as follows. So we have 3 employees. We have Adams, Baloyi, and Smith. Adams worked 46 hours. That already means he worked 40 hours, which is the normal rate, and then he worked 6 hours overtime. This is overtime. I'm just going to put it like that. And then Baloyi worked 35 hours, and Smith worked 43 hours. Normal hours, 40. That is where he gets the normal rate. And then he has 3 hours overtime. I just wanted to break that so that you understand, because they told us that we have a 40 hours working week. Here are the deductions. We have pay as you earn, we have pension fund, we have medical aid, as well as our UIF. It is very important that you also remember that in questions, they can also bring a deduction that is in relation to trade union. We will now complete the information, and we want to see how it will look when we prepare the wages journal. I'm going to focus first on Adams. Adams has worked 46 hours, but his normal time is 40 hours because we have working hours, 40 hours, which is normal. So he is 40. But he has worked 46. The 6 hours therefore come to the overtime. And then his 40 hours, which is the normal time, the rate is 20 Rand. In other words, we will then say 40 hours times the 20 rand. That is how you get 800. Because they told us the basic rate is 20 rand per hour and he has worked 40 hours. That is how you get 800. We have no more time now. For his overtime, he worked 6 hours beyond the normal hours of 40. He worked 6 hours more. So we say those 6 hours multiplied by the rate above. Remember, the rate is what? It is 20, but if he is working overtime, he is paid 1.5 times more. 1.5 times more. So it will be 20 rand multiplied by 1.5. That gives you 30 rand. I would then come here and say 6 hours for overtime, multiply that by the 30 rand overtime. That is how I get my 180. Now, I have my normal time 800 and I have my overtime, which is 180. If I add those two, they will give me my gross wage, 980 rands. Gross wage. We will now look at deductions. The first one, pay as you earn. Pay as you earn is 20% of the gross wage. My gross wage is 980. And my pay as you earn is 20%. That means if I say 980 multiply by 20%, it will give me 196. That is what you find here. Pay as you earn, 196. I'll move on to the next one. Pension fund. 8% of the amount for the normal time. SS Sport Traders contributes 150 for each rand contributed by the employee. So the first one is the deduction, 8% of the normal time. My normal time is 800. So I'll take my 800, multiply by 8%. That is going to give me 64. Here I find my pension fund, 64. But they told me that the company contributes 150 rand for each rand contributed by the employee. That means from the 64, the company is going to put 150 rand for every rand that is deducted from the employee. So I'll say 64 multiplied by 150 rand. That is going to give me, please punch that in your calculator, you get 96. That is how I get my pension fund, 96 here. Let's go to medical aid. Married members pay 50 rand per week and unmarried pay 35 rand per week. A. Adams and S. Smith are married and Baloyi is unmarried. S. Sport Traders contributes medical aid on a rand for rand basis. So that means here we're dealing with Adams. Adams is married. Therefore, if he's married, he will pay how much? 50. So I'll come here, medical aid, 50. That one is an easy one. But they told us that the company also contributes on a rand for rand basis. It simply means 50 multiplied by 1. Multiplied by 1, rand for rand. That is going to give us 50. So I'll come to my medical aid. There is my 50 as a contribution. UIF. A deduction of 1% of normal wage is made by each employee and the business contributes the same amount. So I'll come here, then I'll say a deduction of 1% of the normal wage. So I'll take my normal wage, which is 800. I'll get 1%. That is going to give me 8 rands. There you find 8 rand. And then they say the business contributes the same amount, 8 rand over here then, contributions. Then lastly, trade union. It is compulsory for employees to belong to AA Sport Union and 15 rand is deducted. There is the 15 rand. So I'll add all my deductions now, which is my 64 plus 196 plus 50 plus 8 rand plus 15. That will give me a total of 333. To conclude this, I will then say my gross wage, 980, minus my deduction, 333. That will give me 647. That becomes my net wage. So you get to do that for Adams, for Baloyi and Smith, and then you get your totals right at the bottom. Very important, dear learners, that you are able to do these calculations. And when it's completed, this is how it looks. We will go for an ad break, and I'll see you shortly.